started. Of course, as always, if you can't hear me, just please raise your hand and we'll talk over the fan. I want to thank you all very much for joining us. It's a great crowd. I know we also, the city, thank you to Jacob and the team for partnering with us and having as kind of co-hosts for this meeting. They play this meeting on the city channel so people can watch it whenever it works and you can go through the quarterly meeting. So my name is Marcus Pockner. I'm going to run us through a quarterly update here. A couple of things that I want to be sure and acknowledge is, folks, I was just driving around the site today on Uplands. We are certainly at probably the max or the most kind of involved perimeter part of our project right now. So I know all of you, I recognize so many neighbors. We are really trying to complete that edge process and move it into the neighborhood. That's why we have this meeting, to give you a full update, so we'll go through that. Before we go into the construction update, one thing I'd like to show again is just a reminder that the new website is up. And if you go to the website today and you go over here to Uplands and see construction updates, we are continually trying to update the progress, what is happening. We post this presentation, the schedules, what we anticipated the major projects to be in the construction schedule. So please follow that. I think it's a really important way to continue to communicate with the neighbors and just so people have the anticipation of the next steps of the project. So next slide, myself and Ryan Littleton here from HR Green will handle the presentation today. Ryan is really a project manager on the site, has designed a lot of the engineering, so can answer any of those questions that you have and we'll go through it. So again, we'll try to get through it. So we go to the next slide. We'll get through a lot of the questions and comments before we take questions. We'll go through the full presentation. We'll kind of go the meeting guidelines, the neighborhood updates, each sub-neighborhood, the process that we're working through. We'll talk about the development applications, the summary of those. Then we'll go to Ryan and we'll talk about this summer, what happens in the summer of 25, the schedule that's there. We'll actually go road by road on the perimeter here of Uplands to Waterways. Next slide. So I think we all know this. I think probably the most important thing is we'll always be respectful of each other, but I want to thank Eric and Crown Point very much for hosting. You're officially out of school now, or are we out? Excellent. So even after school, they're still opening it up and for the summer. And as you all know, right across the street when you're leaving here, you see their signs. They have a very important expansion going, which we're really excited for Crown Point to grow this campus just to the north, and you can see some images outside. Okay, this is a little bit of a neighborhood update, and we always talk about that. We always define these as parcels, so parcel A, parcel B, C, and D, those are all the parcels of Uplands, right? But we often talk about how each one of these are really sub-neighborhoods. These are neighborhoods, we define them that way. So for instance, when you see A1, that is a neighborhood that we have gone through the approval process. So if you see here something that shows an underlying site plan, we are all the way through the approval project. That project, that neighborhood is moving forward. They're all in different forms, but that's the neighborhood that we built. So again, in A1, there's a large city park. That land has been dedicated to the city of Westminster. It's a 10-acre parcel. And then A1 is a neighborhood owned and being developed by Brookfield Development Partners. So they're going through the process. I'm sure I see a few neighbors that live right across from E1 here. This is actually under construction. There are maybe 8 homes that have been constructed right now. It's the first home to come out of the ground. So you see B1 is moving forward and will move forward very expeditiously. So this shows all the sites. The C neighborhood, we're right here below C1E in Crown Point is where we're at today. That's the site we're in. But we see a lot of activity. Actually, C2 there is the affordable housing neighborhood that is moving forward by St. Charles Company. It is completely framed. Some architecture is starting to really come in. Some finishes to that. So they're working through. So you're seeing elements of all the different parcels, development happening on those in the neighborhoods moving forward. These two next neighborhoods, E1 goes to City Council, then to Planning Commission, and then E2 will be scheduled with Planning Commission, I think, in the coming weeks. So we're taking those through the process next. Folks, this is a slide we are all very familiar with that goes through the requirements, really what Ryan is in charge of. So if I say something incorrect, Ryan can really protect me and go through the detail of it. But this is what was in our PDP, our original approval documents, that shows all of the improvements, 40+ million in infrastructure improvements that we have to do around the perimeter of the site and actually extend it off the site. As you will notice, there's actually a number of additions that we continue to add here on the east side of Federal. And a lot of that, as you see in the red, are the water improvements and the sanitary sewer improvements that really correspond to the T1 neighborhood here and some of the improvements as we go through that process. So Ryan's actually going to talk in some detail a little bit about some of those improvements, but just showing the same plan that's been in place. We're working with the city partners and others. You see that hatched line around it. We are paying for those, but the improvements are being done by somebody else, usually the city or a contractor through a city process. But these are all planned improvements, really again around the full perimeter of Uplands, and then extended off-site to improve the service, not only for our site, but for the adjoining neighborhoods as well. Next slide. Folks, this shows, again, this is a slide we usually leave up at the end of the meeting so people can come look at it, but it shows as we improve neighborhoods, what happens with the corresponding like fabric of the neighborhoods, the sidewalks, the pedestrian trails, all of those. So again, I'm going to come down here and talk about T1 here. As that neighborhood is going through the approval process, we are showing what's happening there. The trail system along Federal that is getting improved, along 84 to the east, and then to the food corridor to really allow people to have access to that new park and open space lane. So that shows that 6-foot and 8-foot trails that we're going. We're actually adding a bike lane east from Federal on 84 there. So it just shows all of these improvements that are planned and in construction. You'll notice here on 88, again, just up here east of Federal, a lot of those improvements are coming in right now. Roadways are nearly complete. 84 to the 88 interchange is being finalized. So a lot of this infrastructure is emerging as we speak. I've noticed, and a lot of you know Lowell very, very well, Lowell continues to change, transform. There's certainly been some continued delays there, some extension of the contracting there. We'll talk a little bit about that, but you're certainly noticing the improvements on those as well. Next slide. So folks, we'll go through this just to remind everybody the process that we went through. The master development applications, the summary, those are a lot of the documents we go through the process, go to city council, their votes, the approvals that go through it, then the administrative approval. We just want to remind, we are through all of these processes, right? CDOT approval on Federal Boulevard, all the master traffic improvement study is approved. We are in construction phase. We are really going through that. It's continually just that. All of the approvals that were needed have been granted, and we're really in that construction and development phase. Next slide. This is where I get to turn over to Ryan, and we're going to go back and forth here. I'll probably ask a couple of questions based on comments we got online. So Ryan, you ready for that? But this is again really drafted or pointed at summer 2025. What is happening now and what's our anticipated and updated schedules? Folks, there are changes to this schedule. If you compare 3 or 4 meetings ago, our anticipated timeline, some have grown, some have actually shrunk, some are completed, but we'll continue to go through that, so we're happy to answer your questions. So Ryan, if you want to talk first maybe about 84th, if you all just see our color map here, the green is 84th. It extends then the purple east of Federal, and then Federal Boulevard is kind of an orangish color. So Ryan can give us updates on all those improvements that we're going to make.
Yeah, so 84th Avenue between Federal and Sense shut down. And we're anticipating that to probably occur through July to wrap up the planning process. There's probably close a little bit longer than we would like. Experience some people separate material that it's on station being wrapped up this summer. 84th East and Federal
cell. That is not, this is something you'll hear, you'll see articles about it all over. It is a great challenge Excel is facing right now across the region, delivering services, upgrades. So particularly like that T1 parcel, when we're talking about that, remember we're burying the power lines there, that's the change. That's the process we're working through with Excel. They would not counter what we're saying, but everybody understands that's the process. So as those get delayed a little bit, that extends our timeline. As you can see on that corner just there a few minutes ago, it is prepped and ready to go really for that work. We're just going through the final process. Next slide.
All right, so here we're looking at Bradford. That's completely done except for the intersection tying into the pole. You'll notice on the pole it might have felt, it feels like a pause getting there. It's all on the cell. You'll notice there's power poles just kind of up there where the street will be. And we're just waiting for them to catch up with their design and construction, relocating, grounding, and then we'll learn south. Similar to the intersection before and pole. The signal will commence as soon as you sell underground there on the west side. So we're all teed up, and that construction will be expedited as much as Uplands possibly can, as much as the city possibly can.
Can I ask a question on Bradford? It's all open as we've seen. When is the landscaping in the tree lawn? When does that go in and anticipate the sale? I don't know if you know.
I know. I don't have that.
Great. So we'll find that information and we'll post it. I don't think that's probably part of the infrastructure. Jacob may actually know that from the city, but we're going through the process on that. I will note people have brought that up and just comments when will the infrastructure, excuse me, when will the landscaping go in there? As you know, that's open, the sidewalk is open, but we'll get a schedule update on that as well so people know when that will be. Okay. Next slide.
Right, and there's lots of, there's plenty of other activity along Gold Boulevard. We'll start at the north end there and go work our way from the bottom on the side right there. So immediate goal, we're working with the city on an additional city project, upgrading water lines. We're installing, or we'll be abandoning, installing new sanitary sewer from the county chest. So that's why some of the outward that they paused over there from what's been completed. All the plans are fully approved for that city work, just finalizing the final piece of that is. Actually, the timing probably worked out, okay, they do a lot of this work for schools out. But minimal impact to the students there. So really the orange is just finalizing, that's going to be part of the water, upgraded water lines.
So folks, we've seen a number of our maps, 84th goal, all of it is about trying to meet school back right before August to try to have this reopen. We're showing here that we meet those timelines. We're keenly aware of that, the light here at 84th and Wall, understanding that traffic companies say 84th is closed east of Irving. So we know we have to make those improvements. That's the process we're going through. So I know that the neighbors that here that live on Wall or in Shaw Heights, we talk often about some of the changes that are happening. Again, we've said it, the opportunity to work with the city to make an unplanned, a very needed improvement, a different project that we combine. We did that because otherwise we would finish the project and then literally come back and tear it up and redo that and add in another improvement. So that's why it's taking a little longer. It's actually saving time overall and going through that process. So that's how we're coordinating that and really trying to work through that process. So again, that's the Lowell Boulevard. I know that we see here some partial closures and full closures. Again, we'll put this on the website and we'll continue as much as we can to provide any updates on when that will happen in the process. I can talk a little bit just to frame this and then I'll have Ryan do the details. So this is something that we're showing that we move internal from the infrastructure, if you will, from the the surrounding infrastructure. Now we're talking about what's happening on the overall parcels. Yes, we all see it, we all live by it, drive by it, and understand, the different improvements that we're seeing. So what we try to do here is just give some updates on the overall parcels, right? So the large parcel, parcel A, grading is substantially complete, right? Overlot grading across the whole site. You're seeing all of that. The orange that's in place. You are seeing A1 and A5 are doing some sub-excavation work. That means the builder is actually coming in and they are going through the process of improving the soils, going through that, and will actually start. We met with Brookfield last week. They are actively scheduling their groundbreaking when they'll move forward with all of that. So the dirt that you see moving again on A1 and A5 actually means that that's working with the builder, actually going through the soils, improving that. Ryan can say it better, but that's a process that movement is happening. So that's what's happening on all of those. I think you can see the other parcels there. Purple again show specific builders. The builders are involved in that process. Ryan, anything to add there on parcel A, other activities that are happening?
As you notice me here, right, there's a substantial amount of curb that the next step is making the streets go flat. Streets whether a lot of grades in some areas, finding right between the curb together, a whole lot of
Great. B1 down here in the pink, infrastructure is again complete, substantially complete. We said we'll be adding landscaping there. Tell us some more of the electrical, where are those improvements, kind of what's happening with the rest of them?
Yeah, so like Mark said, all the city utilities or the city infrastructure is the bond's been certified, roads are in, houses are in. So now Excel is in there, in there, power, and gas, and the lots.
Great. And then finally, the C parcels, you could read there the improvements. Most of those are in. We've actually had a number of neighbors here that have brought up where we could add some temporary signage. Temporary stop signs have actually been added as that construction goes on. As you all know, there's a development application in on the north side of 88 as well. That's in Federal Heights. So it's going through that process. So that interchange, that intersection, I should say, the realignment of that in some ways, and the former Eagle site and the Eagle site that will be redevelopment. We're working with them to really try to coordinate all of that. They're also, as we continue to move east here on 88, working through the challenges of providing basically a trail net, right, to Highland Hills there, to that beautiful open space to the north and east of that site. Yes, we continue to work through some storm challenges there. As we had that in early April, they had some draining, some overflow there. Certainly understand those challenges. The city was immediately on top of that, worked with us on that. They now have a crew that's kind of on an emergency basis available to address any stormwater issues. So that gives a good overview of the C parcel as well and the improvements that are happening. Next slide. That might be, if we can go back, instead of just leaving this one up for questions, Holly, if we can go back to that last slide. So folks, we can come here again, we try to give just a good, quick overview of the improvements that are planned. A lot of them, you all know what is there. We're starting to certainly get people to sign up for interest lists, to learn more from the builders. Dream Finders is that B1 neighborhood, the first neighborhood. They have an interest list that is growing. They're communicating directly to interested buyers on that site. So as that neighborhood start to emerge, that will be a separate process. And that's why we have the new website where we try to allow people to be interested in the homes, but allow neighbors, all of you, to really still understand the infrastructure improvements, the timing. You are more impacted by all of that. We certainly understand it. And I think it's our job to try to be as transparent about those improvements as we can. So that's the process. Ryan can go into any amount of detail you want to go through. So we're here to answer any questions that you have, and we'd be happy to do it. Karen.
And there is
I'm just going to repeat just part of it here, just so the camera hears it. For people, I'll do the first part. Your question was, you live by 92nd, and there's some townhomes there that are not selling or moving. You're concerned that our site, the Uplands site, with the density that it has, may not sell or may not move all those properties. So one thing I would say, and it's just an opinion of mine, you know, right now we have 7 or 8 probably different builders that are involved, right? I think they all are absolutely, this is what they do, is deliver product. They understand how to phase product and when and what that absorption will be of that, right? So Karen, I think it's a fair point. It's a different time in the market than any of us could have anticipated probably a year ago, right? And I just mean that from world events, everything, right? So I think they're going through that. The one thing I will say is, as we've tried to be very clear that the infrastructure needed to come first, and all of this disruption that you are all feeling, and I acknowledge that, I know that, is we really want to make that disruption go away and bring it inside the neighborhoods, right? Then we can pace that sale. So Karen, I don't think we'll have any slowdown in this perimeter construction. You're asking about houses. I will say as well, we have seen an incredibly strong sign-up list, interested list in this type of housing. I think we have a very diverse type of product here that will attract buyers, but we're going to have to prove that out. So all I would say is we're not going to go too fast. We're going to understand that market. You noted a very good concern. All cities have a certain amount of time to pull a permit. There has to be activity on the site, right? Clearly, are very active on the site. If we ever got through to that process and they weren't moving, then we'd have to go through that and decide what that means, right? So good comments. We're not concerned at all. We think it. Yeah, I think the. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, and I think what you'll see is probably, here's my speculation, A1, A5 as an example is a builder, right? Brookfield is doing that, right? So for them to have model homes and product to show, they really have to get permits, pull those permits, put in all that infrastructure. I think some of the other neighborhoods may not emerge until you see how the sales are going. So very fair point. We're cognizant of that same thing and going through the process. Yes.
I am in Shaw Heights, so I'm actually right on.
Right across the street, right on the.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Okay,
right
sure.
on.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, I appreciate the improvements on Shaw Boulevard.
Okay,
The sidewalks.
Great.
Awesome. How to go off.
If you could talk louder and take all the time you want.
Okay.
Just not joking.
I love the sidewalks. I think they're awesome to actually that just gives me a feel. So people would zoom past and now having kind of like sidewalks, so it's safer. And it's great. It's easier to connect from Shaw Heights to kind of that federal or roll even to federal. So I appreciate that.
Great.
That's great. My question is just the drainage ditch
Sure.
that you all dug. When is that going to be completed? Only because the way that our fence backs up to that line, we have a retaining wall on our side. So pretty those coyotes are extremely active because of all the lunches that have been left by the construction workers. And so on next door, on Green, it's every single day there's like, oh, the coyote is out, the coyote is out, watch your small dogs, watch your small kids, watch your whatever. So, I don't know if you talked to you about that, because it's literally, when I walk my dogs on the beautiful sidewalk, they are trying to eat all of the junk outside.
Okay. So maybe we can, and Holly, can you go that shows the neighborhood plans, the one that shows all the overall sites of these? Is that the most helpful? Ryan, to show keep going back and show this one here, because you can see a little bit of it. The second question you had about trash and things that kind of sometimes happen around construction, the activity on the site. So we have a site supervisor contour that we work with. We will bring that up to them, and maybe we can do a couple of big sweeps and kind of clean up everything. We do that from time to time, periodically, maybe not enough. So we'll add that to the list and see if we can do that. I know that happens. You are absolutely right. And the lunch trailers and stuff that come out. So we'll work on that. The other one, I think, just to be sure, this is the drainage. Is here, Ryan, you answer the questions, but that's where your question is about primarily. Like,
Yeah, and the whole,
yeah, of course. Yeah. West
this
side.
whole, yeah, so this entire part has like a big
Yeah.
ditch.
Yes.
And so, just like the neighbor's fences and our fences, we always just kind of how the dirt was pushed up against our fences, and our now is kind of
Sorry.
edit that out.
Yeah, no worries. It was edited out by the sound of the fan.
So as much of the Uplands as our firm has been involved with this particular parcel, however, I'm very familiar with it, and I'm very familiar with the firm. So I will take a call after this meeting, and we'll go walk the site, and along with the drain pipes, and no drain concerns. That's very valuable.
So, yeah, we talk directly because I've been trying to contact someone for like 3 months. And
We'll
I
actually
sent
give you a
emails.
contact directly tonight. So we'll provide somebody from that engineering firm that we all work with. They're sometimes here, Brian's here tonight, and literally does all these other sites. That was a different one. You know the contour of this site, folks, just so when you go by, the homes that are in construction are these right here, just so everybody can think about it. This is an alley right there, and that's on the other side of that, west of that, as you're talking about. So we'll give you a contact tonight, and Ryan will meet you. We can go walk that site. So one, you can't damage your fences. We get in a lot of trouble for that. The city monitors that. So let's just start with, if we cause any damage, we're responsible for that and all of those. Let's try to alleviate that before that happens. So I think that's one of the things we can do, and we'll work through that. Okay?
Awesome.
So
Because it is damaged.
yeah, okay. It is already damaged. It's established. That's a check mark. So there we go. Colin. Yes, sir.
West side, building duplexes now. I thought we would have 3 units per complex.
So, now everybody changes, and you were just the person to ask that question, and I don't know if I can go through, in the E1 neighborhood, there are these colors denote, and it's hard to see, they denote different home typologies there. So there are duplexes, if I remember correctly, on the park, right, that really face that. That's what you're seeing, so those are duplexes there. They're shared homes, as we call them now, duplexes, right? These are smaller blocks, single family, and then it's a mix of duplexes. So I believe there are 3 different home types in that neighborhood, but it's always a mix of them. So there has always been planned duplexes.
One other thing, you have Bob and
So we haven't done the landscaping, but the weeds are going well, right? So that's not a great combination. We'll do that, I think, probably is that mainly on the B2 side, on your side? Okay, yeah. We'll take care of that. We'll get everybody, the moisture has been something, as you well know. So we'll get that taken care of. And I don't know, and I'm looking at city folks, I know the city takes care of it, you understand this. This has been dedicated to the city. All of this green has, they of course, I think maintain and go through that, but we'll check on our side right away. Yeah. There was somebody back here, yeah.
So my comment is more from my perspective, I can ask you for other people.
Sure.
I know that there are some small families that don't have financial support, we don't have houses handed down to us, and then we sell and buy a new home. So
Sure.
we're kind of starting from ground zero. So from my understanding, the original mission of this project is to go to the teachers, nurses, small families that are struggling,
Sure.
to make sure the price is reasonable, lower and affordable for them, and not have somebody abuse that. Is that still the main mission of this?
Yeah.
So it's not like a money-making type of thing?
Sure, and I don't, the last part of that, if the point needs to be, or the question re-asked, just so people can hear it, just the type of housing, the goal was to have more attainable housing across the site, right? Is that still the goal and all of that? I'm gonna approach that a couple of different ways. First of all, we had required affordable housing, right? Deed restricted affordable housing on the site. We are exceeding the number of units that were required, right? So we're well north of that, C2, C1, and some other neighborhoods. Again, deed restricted affordable housing. Those will actually be some of the first communities open on the site. To your larger question about just attainability, right? So our philosophy is, and as you look at all of these, the only way you make homes more affordable in metro area today is lot size and home size. It has to be not the large lots that we all grew up on, because you just pay so much more for those, right? So Westminster had incredible forethought 20 years ago to start putting this district together to look at a mix of homes. So yes, we are doing duplexes, townhomes, attached product. Those are all more attainable prices because they're smaller, they're still family oriented, and I don't mean the home is smaller, we just don't have the giant backyard that we used to water and spend all the time on and everybody paid for. So that is still our goal. I don't know any of the new initial home prices on some of these, but you will see a pretty substantial variation of product and prices for all of those. I don't know, I bet some of you can tell me the average median price here in Westminster is probably $650, $675 now. It's remarkable. That's the average home price now. So we want to be very competitive and lower than that in some of our product with our town home products as well.
Because the land is donated, right?
No, we purchased, it certainly wasn't. I wish it was. It was not donated. We bought all the land. We went through a very kind of long process for entitlement. The thing that you may think of when you say the land was donated, sometimes when we work with affordable housing developers, sometimes land is given to them, but that's on the deed restricted 30 to 80% affordable projects. But on the rest of the site, no, it was all purchased and it's part of the process.
So you're saying a home in this area, the same size, everything lot size and house size, it would be pretty much the same price as other houses around?
Yeah, we'll see. No, I think we'll see variation. I think in our townhomes, right, and some of those products, you'll see lower prices than you would on a large lot, single family home. Homes that are here in Observatory Heights, right, today, those are selling, I don't know, 8 to 1.2, 1.4 million, right, 800,000. You'll have homes that are much more attainable, much more affordable than that. So I don't know all the home prices because they're just developing those. The way we've done it though is to have 1,500 square foot homes with smaller yards so we can all afford it. So that's our goal. We're absolutely. Sure. Yeah. And I know you're signed up. You've been here on that interest list. They'll start going through the lottery and the process they were going through. To the reaction earlier, we believe we're actually going to have a lottery system on the priority numbers because there's been such strong interest, right? So we haven't seen that delay in the market. We've really seen a lot of interest in the product. Other questions? Comments? John? Question was, will we address or talk about the HOA dues, the Metro District fees, right? Except for the parcels that are the affordable housing parcels. That is generally correct that when you develop affordable housing, you usually don't put a mill levy or HOA fees on top of that, right? When people get a unit in an affordable housing, they have a guaranteed price on it. It includes utilities that they don't have. I'm not going to waive minimum wage on. That's the part of that. So for all the sub neighborhoods, E1 here itself, E1 will have its own HOA, and they will provide and direct those fees. They will layer that into the home purchase, and then everybody across the site will pay Metro District fees. That's on top of it. That's to build the roadways, the improvements, all of that. That's the district. So residents who live here or shop here, when I go shop at the coffee shop, I pay fees related to that, right? And that pays for it. Why do we do that? So all of you as residents that are nearby, you don't pay. We pay it internal, and that's the process you go through. That's why we do it. So John, I don't know the numbers because those aren't established. Yeah, I know the mills, yes, but that's the same process we're working through, sorry. But we don't know the HOA fees yet. Yes, go ahead.
How is this corridor and the public land dedication, how are these supposed to look like? Because right now,
Yeah.
it was a field, so it's just overgrown.
Sure.
Are you all going to like change them, or
Yeah.
are they going to be how they are?
Yeah, so the question was about how do the view corridors and the PLD, the parkland dedication. So the city actually worked with the neighborhoods, right, early on in this process. In the comprehensive plan, there were some areas that were denoted of particular significance, right? One of them is this corridor right here, where the grove of trees used to be. The other is looking downtown off of D1, right? To really think of that. So the city owns those now and will be responsible for the planning process and the development of those, right? So I just want to be clear, the city does that. We've actually paid the fees and donated the land they own. So they'll go through a very robust process to design the view corridor. And Jacob, if he wants to clarify more, view corridors have kind of different requirements than a park would because you want to protect the view corridor, right? And so they'll have different guidelines that go into that process. But that'll be a public process that people are going through.
And then are that E1 public park?
Yeah.
That's public.
It's so I always say it internal here, right in there, actually covering up in the B1. There's a private park there. It's a private park, meaning the HOA pays for it, maintains it, but it's open to all the public. So if you live across the street, as you said you did, you can go to that park and enjoy the amenities just like anybody else. So we say private in that the city isn't responsible for the maintenance, the HOA is, but you and I can go enjoy that anytime. Question, John? I'm sorry, who's taking care of what?
The street people say on the large lot.
Yeah. Who has street maintenance on the large lot once those get built out? Ryan, how's that process work?
Say that main question?
Yeah.
So anything public, there's a lot of public right away.
Describe it like that.
Yeah, sure.
Everything,
That gray blue.
everything gray blue, that's all public.
And the alleyways between the houses.
And then let's look at A7 for instance. Rarely see it, but there's gray in here. Those are the public roads in A7. And all the white, those alleys, that be 18 right now.
So just looking at that 88th, 87th, 86th, right? And then there's some that, those are all city roads, public right of way. The city maintains those. Anything that's our private drive or alleys, we are responsible for. Or the developer of that community, that HOA, is responsible for. So we are just showing under 87 there. John, that's a street here, right? That's a public street, and so is this one here. Those would be city. The others are our responsibility. And they are denoted by color, and we can certainly share that. Maybe we can do, Polly, just so we can show that a little larger on the website, where we can just show a couple of snippets of that. Great. Other questions, comments? Yeah, sorry.
Going back to the parks,
Yeah.
Fort Crown Point had their groundbreaking.
Yes.
They mowed that lot,
Okay.
and it looks so much better.
Sure.
When it's mowed. So the public land dedication, if I could suggest to the city, because it'll probably be years before it's parts could go, we mow it at least, like with the ground dried out, if we could have it mowed down, it would look so much.
Great. So comment just to the city, encouraging on the PLD, the parcels, that they could mow on during that process. So I understand that, and there's sometimes, Ryan, I don't know when that is, but a lot of times when we're working through a community like this, the city may say, hey, can you mow, we'll work with them. So we'll try to watch that as well and go back and forth and work with them. Yes.
Actually, I gotta say that, it was like something that's the original, and I find it as I got to have to all this stuff down.
Yeah. Do you like the native grass there?
Yeah, I didn't really see that, and no grass is dead, or something. But that does some vegetated areas, I don't know if that's purposeful or if that's just not on its own, because that's what it is, like you said, all that soil, the blow around, how sediment deposits in their ditches and their waterways, and that has never seemed to be a concern about us. They don't, generally, they don't care whether water is dirty or not. They don't care whether dirt goes around and causes breathing problems. I've been really disgusted to see the site work that does not include vegetation and just a bunch of grading and it's bad.
Just so you know, the revegetation that you are seeing is because of Uplands planting that and following city requirements. So there is revegetating going. You actually have seen it happening. That's where that is. To your comment on the water, we're all working through that. The challenges, the runoff, these storms, April. I don't know why it's in these dilutions that are happening, right? But Karen, I can assure you that it's really happening. I talked to some neighbors the other day at Shaw Heights. There are substantial improvements that are actually happening around the detention basin, really some improvements. So we hear you, it's something we struggle with, but we do revegetate everywhere on the grid.
Yeah, so what are some mitigations you all have in process with the amount of soil that's
Sure.
happening? So again, we're right there.
Yeah,
And so there's a humongous
Yeah.
amount of dirt. And that's a wind vortex because of the hill.
Sure.
And so that leads our house down.
great. Yep.
What are mitigations that we can count on for you all to support with like, we can't open our windows for something. Our entire house is covered with this.
So again, I know you understand it, don't want to be one, you're doing it on another neighbor. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so A1 is at a place now where, all the paving's done, houses are being built. Only utility work that's occurring right now by itself. So it's at a point right now where, they should be, we're getting close to needing to seek mulch the disturbed areas that aren't being higher. So they can also surface rough and slow down the sediment there. And keep, partially keep some of the sediment at bay. The steeper slopes, it could be, it's not always needed, sometimes those will be mitigated with virtue of vegetation. So sorry, always required, but on the steeper slopes, that may be.
What about the dirt piles that are just
So the large amount, when does that get all the way or moved off-site from there?
it's like directly kind of.
Okay, I'm not familiar. To be honest, I think we have to correct that too.
It's related to the same issue against the fence, right? So let's go, and that's fine, I think we'll work through that issue. My guess is that gets all off-site pretty quickly. Those are being done. The other thing you'll see is as they dig foundations, right, and new basement structures, that sometimes happens, they go through that and then the backfill. So why don't we go through that site? As you see on parcel A, the larger parcel, there are very large mountains, right? And we understand that some of that is actually the builders treating that soil. So they pull it out, they actually make it a more stable soil, and they put it back in. So that's part of the process, but we'll go see what that is. That's been completed now on E1, that neighborhood, so we'll see when that soil gets removed. Another thing I can tell you, and I don't know the regulations of, but the city watches that very, very closely, and we have a lot of very involved neighbors, and I mean in a good way. So we are following those rules, but let's just meet on site and go through. Yeah, John.
One of the other slides, I know where people is, if you used to hang out on property about P2, what is it?
Yeah.
And also, the horseshoe field area on the property, what is the final operation now?
So first question, the question was what about parcel D2, right? Why isn't that on the map? You have another that shows all our parcels, all here, maybe not on this one. So D2, it's okay, it's just to the east of, there it is. So we show it there, John, we're not going through a process on that one yet, to be honest. That is, it's certainly not a remnant parcel, but I want to describe it as a parcel that is zoned for office. And office right now is a market that we are not seeing on 84th there, right? A lot of it depends on what happens across the street there, right? On the other side with the facility, medical facility. So, John, that's just not planned yet. So that is there, still our parcel, and still responsible. Those improvements, the 8-foot right-of-way and the bike lane are required, and those go through now as if it was going through. We actually worked a lot with the senior housing just to the south of that site because they have a shared access. So we're working on some of the areas around it. And sorry, John, your other question was the horseshoe. This year, right? You know the elevation of that site across the park itself, right?
Yeah, so there's probably two answers to that. The first answer is ultimately it's up to the city. It's ultimately up to the city because it's their property.
So your dirt on it, I mean,
Well, ultimately, it'll be the city.
or either it's the cities or something. If it's the cities, then the dirt that's on there should be the cities, and they should be able to sell it.
There's temporary plans that you work through with the city on any site, and you would want us to do that because otherwise we move it to the edges, which are adjacent to the neighborhood. So this is internal to the site, so it's actually a much better way to balance the site, as we call it, from the dirt. The roadways are set.
The little dirt down there is shot in the wall.
Yeah.
Taking it up there and adding to that pile, that's already, what, 60 feet tall? 100 feet tall?
Yeah. That process, that's just part of the overlap grading and the soil treatment that we're going through.
The question still remains, what is the final operation?
So when the contractor moves out, the elevation will be a couple of feet higher than the horseshoe. And then a couple of feet higher than the horseshoe. Then at that point, hopefully the city's working through some designs, probably achieve those rates a little bit.
Yeah. The only thing I would say, just for people to think about elevation, is it means different things, right, John? The roadway, as you know, the north-south roadway, Irving is there. You can see it today. That's the street elevation, and the sidewalks connect to that. So that's one way I think of ground level elevation. If there's a structure built in the park or contour on that, that's to be determined, but that's part of the process we go through in designing the detention facilities. Do you have another follow-up, right? I lead to a lot of follow-ups. Is that okay?
Let's say, take that road there to A2 and A3.
Sure.
Is that only one crosswalk? 88 rank? That's all the radius of Boulevard.
Yeah, so it shows the curve bump outs, that's what you're seeing in gray, right? And the one crosswalk, yes, and usually at designated streets, depending on the street typology, you would have a particular crosswalk, right? So you can gather people more safely and have them leave at one crossing. So you're showing that, that's the plan that is on the southern part of that intersection at 86th and Boulevard. It's actually a safer condition than drivers not knowing where their crosswalk is to have one gathering place for that to happen. And that has probably gone through 30 reviews for people who know that type of detail to design. Yes, Karen. Yeah, that is, that looks north, looks like it's looking actually eastbound on 88th. That was a point in time that shows improvements. You see, that's kind of how we're showing some of those roadways that are coming in. You see the 10-foot multi used trail, the sidewalk there, that's just showing an image. It kind of comes back here, you can't see it very well at 88. That's that view perspective from right there. So we'll try to pull in a few more just to show those improvements. 88 is actually, I think, changed pretty substantially from that in the last couple of years. Great. I think, folks, we may be getting close to wrapping up. We owe you some details here, so we'll meet with you to put in touch with their team to go walk that site. Anybody else, if you have other questions, we'll stay here. We're happy to pull up any additional maps. I will say, I think, Holly, on our last slide, we have our next quarterly meeting that says it. It's like on the website as well. So we're going to be meeting in on August 28th and then the Tuesday, November 18th instead of a holiday. So those are on our website, so we'll do it quarterly and continue to go through that process. So thank you very much. We know you're all going through the construction with us, and we certainly appreciate your patience. So everybody have a great night. Thank you very much.